You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
Grown-ups, if there's a child in your life who is interested in, curious about, or fascinated by people and places from history, then my podcast, The Past and the Curious, might just be a hit in your home. From the invention of microscopes to world-traveling dogs to fashions of the 1890s, gold rush ghost towns, and audiences going wild for walking competitions, we've got a little bit of it all. Hosted by children's author and museum educator Mick Sullivan, that's me, the show is fun, funny, engaging, honest, and beloved by kids and parents alike. Find The Past and the Curious at all the usual podcast places.
No one hates history, they just haven't found the right teacher yet. Or in this case, a nerdy best friend who loves to tell you all about world history, women's history, and weird history. Hi, I'm TK, the creator of For the Love of History podcast, a place for people who want to learn more but don't know where to start, and history lovers who want to break from the mainstream. From rat trials to warrior women, we cover topics from every country and era. Whether you're a history expert or just starting out, there's a place for you here in the Time Machine. So join me every Friday on your favorite podcast platform and YouTube for a brand new topic. See you there. Bye.
This episode is brought to you by our Patreon members. Thank you so much.
Join our Patreon for extra episodes, interviews, extra content, and to help support the podcast and help us continue to do the work we do.
Go to patreon.com/ancienthistoryfangirl to learn more.
We would just rock up in our luxury yachts and, well, float.
I'm Jen McManany.
And I'm Jenny Williamson.
And this is Julius Caesar Presents The Sunken Pleasures of Baiae.
What's happening right now?
So we're actually doing this? Are we actually doing this?
Yes, Ms. Williamson. I'm crashing your episode and improving it immeasurably. Now, be quiet and let's discuss one of my favorite haunts, Baiae. This fucking guy. What was that? I have real feels about the fact that we are letting Julius Caesar crash the podcast and derail this episode. This episode I spent so much time researching.
I mean, to be fair, he is giving us the first-hand account.
I'm improving this immeasurably. I've said that once already. Do not make me repeat myself. Now, as I was saying, during my time, there was only one place that the wealthy could go to truly be ourselves, to let ourselves indulge in all the pleasures of this mighty fine earth. And that place, my dears, was Baiae.
I just want to say, before we get started in this, Julius Caesar, how the fuck are you? I have not talked to you in forever.
Miss Williamson, I have missed you so very much. I have been just enjoying myself in the afterlife. I swear, not peeping on mortals when they're not paying attention.
Definitely not. No, good lord.
I hear you have some news for me, Miss Williamson.
I don't know what you're talking about. I have zero news. Zero things have happened in my life.
Oh, really? You don't want to talk about Cuchulainn, then?
Jen?
I didn't tell him. No, Cuchulainn has a big mouth, Miss Williamson. Come on now.
That is very, very true, especially when he's warp spasming.
I'm just letting you know, if you decide to be in some polyamorous relationship with Cuchulainn, you best add me in there as well, or else we will have words.
You are not entitled to be in my murder polycule with Cuchulainn.
Yes, but I'm a very good murderer.
Oh, that is a good point.
All right, Julius Caesar, did you want to talk about the other news you heard? Yes, Ms. Williamson, I have to congratulate you.
On my impending death nuptials.
We're not talking about the death nuptials. I've already staked my claim there. I'll pee on Cuchulainn if I have to. Now listen.
Ew!
I have to congratulate you on your big news about your book. Set many, many, many years when I am not around any longer, but still watching over Rome. About a certain king of the Visigoths. Congratulations, Miss Williamson. I expect you to spend your time now writing about my life and deeds. I've given you, one freebie.
Look, Julius Caesar, number one, Alaric of the Visigoths is my one and only, and I anticipate that he will be challenging Cuchulainn post-haste in the afterlife. I haven't heard the outcome of that yet. They're probably still fighting it out. I don't know.
I'm not fighting that war because I've already won it. Continue, Miss Williamson.
I'm crying right now. Number two, I fight my own battles, thank you. And number three, And number 3, be nice to writers, because we might write about you, Julius Caesar. Is it a threat? Is it a promise? Make up your own mind.
Listen, Miss Williamson, you will write favorably about me because that is the relationship we have. I'm not asking for the earth, Miss Williamson. I have made your podcast very popular. Now, I can promise you one thing about Baiae, Miss Williamson, that the other one would not be invited there. I could see you going there, but not her.
That's extremely rude.
Oh, fuck off, Julius Caesar. Fuck off. Number 1, I did all the research into this episode that you are now gate crashing. And number 2, I'm also working on a book, and spoiler, you're in it and in one tiny section, and you're a baddie.
I think he wants to be a baddie.
Yeah, but he's not a good baddie. He's a bad baddie. And you get your comeuppance. I talk about the bad, horrible day, so there you go.
He's been a bad baddie the whole time.
I'm just saying, he likes it when people talk about his early life, not like when he was genocidal. Miss Williamson, can we please move along in this episode and explain the importance of Baiae to the nice people who are listening, who are excited to be a part of history?
Listen, Julius Caesar, before you derail this entire episode, can we please just tell the people about what Baiae is? Like the historical facts? I mean, you're welcome to chime in and give us firsthand on-the-ground accounts, which I'm always into. You know I love that shit. But please, let's just, define what we're talking about first.
The facts, Miss Williamson, according to who? Thank you, dog, for making that noise. There are so many people who wanted to slander that beauteous town. Julius Caesar, I'm only going to say this once. Don't make me banish you. Can you be quiet for a few minutes while we set the stage, and then you can just be the peanut gallery, okay? So, now that we have temporarily wrestled back control of our own podcast, let's get this episode properly started.
This podcast is haunted.
By Julius Caesar and others.
And Cuchulainn and various assorted others.
So, I started the research for this episode last season during our natural disasters arc, and both Jenny and I were so excited about this story. Because I was like, I want to talk about a sunken city. Swoon. And, of course, it's a volcanic sunken city story. It's the story of the sunken city of Baiae, whose ruins you can go visit. It's off the coast of Italy, and some of the ruins are still on land, but many are sunken. So, if this is a volcano story and a sunken city story, 2 of my favorite things, you're probably wondering why I didn't want to include it in the previous season. Last season for me was all about very dramatic natural disasters, or that was the brief I was working towards in my head. I really wanted the big bangs, right?
She loves those big bangs. She likes the climactic events.
Do.
Look, who doesn't? I mean, look, we're all in it for that, ultimately.
Yeah. And while the story of Baiae is incredibly dramatic, it's also sort of a slow decline and then an all-at-once reclamation by the sea because supervolcano, spoiler. And while that is fascinating, it felt not quite dramatic enough to me, so I shelved all of my research and decided to include it in this season instead. If you're wondering what was my more dramatic sunken city, it was Atlayam.
So here we are, finally ready to tackle Baiae. I'm so excited about this episode. I'm excited that Julius Caesar is here because honestly, we need to catch up. Like, it's been a while.
Yeah, and he does bring a sort of levity, which the past few months have needed. I mean, those of you on our social know that I broke my ankle about 2 weeks ago, so I've been not in a great place. And then this week I caught bronchitis, so I'm very happy to have Julius Caesar here to maybe make me laugh a little. Yes, we're giving the other one a little bit of a break.
Yeah, and which, she needs one.
What break? I did all the research. Oh.
You're getting a break, Jen. Just kick back and put your one broken leg up and enjoy me and Julius Caesar being dorks. So here we are. We're finally ready to tackle Baiae. So first, let's set the stage. During the late Republic and into the beginning of the Empire, there was a place all the fabulously wealthy went, an escape from the real world, a place where they could let their togas down and just be naked and unwind. And yes, I do mean togas. And yes, I do mean naked. We'll get there.
So very naked.
That place was Baiae. Was it, in fact, a nudist beach? We're getting there.
Parts of it were, Miss Williamson, fabulously nude and fabulously fun.
Baiae was built about 150 miles southeast of Rome, positioned on the western coast of Italy. Baiae is mentioned in early sources as far back as 178 BC, but it was around 80 BC that it became a popular resort town for ancient Rome's most fabulously wealthy. Pompey, Julius Caesar, even old Marius had villas there. It was the place to be.
Baiae
Baiae is sometimes called the Las Vegas of ancient Rome, but that's not quite accurate. While Baiae definitely had a Sin City vibe, it was also its own very unique place. Baiae was not for everyone. In fact, Baiae was only for the wealthiest of the wealthy. And how do we know that? Well, the evidence is in what wasn't found in the ruins of Baiae, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So, what was life like in Baiae? Baiae was the place where the elite Romans spent the spring. Much like us, the Romans loved a good vacation, but Baiae's location made it an ideal spot for a spring or perhaps winter escape, not so much for a summer getaway. Because frankly, it got too hot to summer at the coastal town. Romans chose to go to the mountains or further north to escape the summer heat. The spring, and presumably the late autumn or winter, was the time where Baiae got to shine.
Is that true, Julius Caesar?
Oh yes, Miss Williamson. Everyone who's anyone doesn't go to Baiae during the summer. Oh, it's dreadfully hot. No, not a place for anyone to be seen. Unless, of course, you had to make a long sea voyage and just needed to visit your villa for just a scotch before you set off on a journey.
I mean, it is positioned right on top of a volcano, so I could see that. But on the other hand, I really love the heat, so I might have just been the only person there, which is totally fine. I like ghost towns.
Oh, Miss Williamson, it is very haunted.
Ooh, into it. You know I love ghosts, just in general. I'm affianced to one. Apparently we had to tell Julius Caesar that.
2, Miss Williamson, 2.
Ew, I did not say yes to you. No, good lord. But you are a good murderer, so I don't know, I'll think about it.
I've already paid your dowry. It's too late.
Really? I'm gonna check my bank account.
I don't pay a dowry to you, Miss Williamson.
You paid it to my dad?
That is the custom.
What? I need to text my dad. Why has he not informed me of this?
Dad, how many talents was I worth?
And what's the exchange rate these days? Because I think like one talent is like $50 million or something.
Oh, Miss Williamson, I definitely paid more than 1 talent for you, so you should feel pleased.
Yeah, I fucking hope so. Obviously, I'm worth more than 1 talent.
I mean, that is $50 million.
Yeah, but Julius Caesar ransomed himself for 25 talents. Come on, I have to be at least worth as much as Julius Caesar's silly ransom demand.
You too. What a lover's spat you're in right now.
It's an enemies to lovers, Jen.
Jesus Christ. Oh, sweet, sweet bisexual queer baby Dionysus, come save me.
Jen, I'm in a wide shoes with like half the ancient world right now.
But not Dionysus.
And who says not Dionysus? Dionysus spreads himself around, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, but him and I have an agreement. He's not allowed to sleep with you.
That would be weird, actually, now that you mention it, weird.
It's too weird, yeah. You can't sleep with Dionysus, sorry.
We need separate wide shoes, otherwise it's incestuous, I agree.
Dionysus and I have talked about this, that we were not okay with that, so I think he wanted to float the idea of Ares or maybe Aphrodite visiting you, or maybe together at once.
Like the ultimate threesome. Oh my god. Okay, I need to cool myself down. I'm being bribed with battle sex.
Dionysus and I are very close. I share him with lots of people, but you're like my sister, so no family.
Too close to home. No, ew. I mean, you getting Dionysus is a big ask, but me getting Ares and Aphrodite, I'll take it. I'll be generous. Anyway, so we're moving on. But the town of Baiae had its own secrets. You see, the coastal resort town of Baiae was built on a supervolcano. Baiae was located about 150 miles south of Rome on the northwest slope of the Cape of Naples, as we've said already. Baiae would have been about a 2-day sea journey or a 6-day trip overland from Rome. Baiae is located to the west of Naples, and from Baiae you can see the looming specter of Mount Vesuvius on a clear day in the distance, just looming over you in a threatening manner. But Baiae had its own deadly beauty.
Yeah, and its deadly beauty is cool because all of Baiae sits on a giant supervolcano. Oh, I'm so nerdy. I'm sorry. Said volcano is called the Campo Flagero, and I think it means something like the burning fields. This entire area is pockmarked with geothermal craters, meaning literally bits of the land are bubbling away with superheated water and steam. You can poke a hole into the ground in certain places and have superheated water and gas bubble up in the gap left behind. It's wild. The landscape seems to rise and fall with the breath of the volcano. And it was this that drew the Romans to the site. The heat, the craters, presumably the flames. Can you tell I'm a fire sign? Yes, I am. Fire by the water? Yes. I'm not sure when Julius Caesar's birthday is. It's sometime in July, but I bet that motherfucker's Leo.
Julius Caesar, are you a Leo?
Oh, Miss Williamson, one never
tells, but if I was to be a sign, it would definitely be the king of all signs. I'll just leave it with that.
What is that, like Sagittarius?
No, it's the lion. It's the Leo. He's being a dick again.
I had him pegged as a Gemini for some reason.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure his birthday is July, so he would either be a Cancer or a Leo, and I could definitely see him being a Leo.
I feel like I need to Google this.
Just going to read this while you Google. And the heat, the craters, and the flames was what drew the ancient Romans and Greeks to this area, because the ancient Greeks and Romans believed that these craters, or more importantly, caves, were linked to the underworld. Now, I'm just writing my own fan fiction here, but it seems likely to me that the ancient Roman elite were all about the underworld worship here at Baiae. Because why else would you build your town on a breathing supervolcano? Were they involved in an ancient death cult? Were they? Who were they worshiping? Big Daddy Hades? I don't know. Prove me wrong.
Julius Caesar, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, we did like the Dread Queen Persephone. She was quite mighty. But you all know who my patron goddess is.
Well, I didn't ask that, Julius Caesar. I asked if there was a death cult at Baiae.
Oh, Miss Williamson, did you figure out when my birthday is yet?
Hang on, I'm looking it up right now. Julius Caesar birthday. Julius Caesar was born on July 12th or 13th in 100 BCE.
So you are a Cancer, Julius Caesar. You are not a Leo, as you claimed. Liar!
Or potentially, is it just wrong propaganda?
Can we continue on about Baiae now? You're derailing me with these talks of when I was corporeal. Ugh.
Okay, we're moving on. We're sticking with the actual research here. Shockingly for this podcast.
Shockingly, we can't confirm that there was a death cult at Baiae worshipped by the elite. Shocker, Julius Caesar won't give us the update there.
Julius Caesar is shockingly unforthcoming when it matters the most, surprising no one.
This episode is brought to you by Redfin. You're listening to a podcast, which means you're probably multitasking. Maybe even scrolling home listings on Redfin, saving homes without expecting to get them. But Redfin isn't just built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. With agents who close twice as many deals, when you find the one, you've got a real shot at getting it. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
Throughout history, royals across the world were notorious for incest. They married their own relatives in order to consolidate power and keep their blood blue. But they were oblivious to the havoc all this inbreeding was having on the health of their offspring. From Egyptian pharaohs marrying their own sisters to the Habsburgs' notoriously oversized lower jaws. I explore the most shocking incestuous relationships and tragically inbred individuals in royal history. And that's just episode 1. On the History Tea Time podcast, I profile remarkable queens and LGBTQ+ royals, explore royal family trees, and delve into women's medical history and other fascinating topics. I'm Lindsay Holiday, and I'm spilling the tea on history. Join me every Tuesday for new episodes of the History Tea Time podcast, wherever fine podcasts are enjoyed.
So, the theory is that the Roman elite chose Baiae as their playground because it had something they craved: healing waters, geothermal hot springs. It was originally called Aquae Cumanae, or the Cumanae Waters, in 178 BC. That was the name of the town. It was renamed to Baiae in honor of Odysseus's helmsman, Bias, who according to myth was buried nearby. And the new name gave the town a new status, a legendary status, one that linked Baiae to boats and travel and myth. Baiae had it all, including a death cult, although certain parties are quite closed-mouthed about that. Julius Caesar will not tell you about the death cult, turns out.
But I will. Praise Hecate.
Praise Hecate, praise Hades, praise our dread queen Persephone.
And our sacrificial king Dionysus. Don't forget our boy.
Anyway, so Baiae had it all, including that all-important bay, the Bay of Baiae, where the elite went to show off their boats, because the elite, just like today, love themselves some pleasure boating, right, Julius Caesar?
There is nothing finer than taking a pleasure cruise around the Mediterranean.
I know how to sail.
I don't know how to sail, but I have a boat license.
Okay, so between us, we're one sailor.
We're one Batavi warrior.
Right, between us, as always, we're one Batavi warrior. So like we said, something about pleasure boating, and Baiae had a lot of all of this in droves, and it was a quick jaunt away from the resort towns of the less wealthy, Pompeii and Herculaneum, although why you would want to go to the towns of the less wealthy beats me.
They were still wealthy. They just weren't like the elite, like Illuminati wealthy.
I know, we're talking about the Illuminati wealthy over here, right?
Yeah, we're talking about the optimists. We're talking about people who had like crazy generational wealth or like crazy new money and were like shaping the course of the entire republic and then the empire in ways that even if you had a lot of money in a luxury villa in Pompeii, you wouldn't necessarily have one in Baiae.
So, it was also near to the bustling city of Naples. And, of course, very close to Messina, where the Roman fleet was kept. So if you wanted to, plan some kind of a coup, your supplies are all right there. In short, it was the perfect place for the wealthy Romans to escape the crush of the capital and, get their freak on.
So freaky.
Ew!
That's the most disturbing thing that's ever been said on this podcast. And we've covered some dark stuff, Julius Caesar.
We have said some real disturbing things on this podcast, and that was it. That was the worst. How much did Julius Caesar pay my dad? Because I think he needs to give me that money, and then I need to enter the witness protection program.
It's too late.
Anyhow, so the Romans loved their baths. I'm just going to read this paragraph. We've talked about how dirty, filthy, absolutely downright disgusting the Roman baths truly were. Not just because of the things people got up to in those baths, but because they were just hotbeds for disease because the water wasn't changed. And people pooped in there, I'm telling you.
Yeah, they didn't change it frequently enough, and it was gross and hot and just a pool for diseases.
But those were the public baths. Those were the baths open to the common folk, the sweaty, sweaty common folk. The baths at Baiae... The baths at Baiae were very different, because all of Baiae was different, shall we say. Baiae was built for the pleasure and escape of the wealthy elite. Marius, Pompey, Mark Antony, Augustus, Caligula, Nero, Claudius, Virgil, Pliny the Elder, Cicero, Seneca, Agrippina the Younger, Hadrian, Alexander Severus, and of course, my ghost stalker, Julius Caesar.
Your ghost fiancé.
Well, that's what you say. I mean, I have not been convinced of this yet. I'm not easy, Julius Caesar. All of these dorks had villas here.
Ms. Williamson, I would not be interested in you if you were easy. I never did anything in my life that was easy.
Right, so, you're gonna have to do more than pay my dad. You have to prove to me how good at murder you are. I have a list of enemies.
Oh my god, the two of you. This is why I didn't want to do this episode. So unlike Pompeii, Baiae is interesting for the things we don't find. We don't find evidence of a bustling town with homes and businesses catering to the common, usually freed people. Instead, we find evidence of large complexes, probably on the lands of villas owned by a single wealthy person, that paint a picture of an economy driven by a wealthy person and the staff they surrounded themselves with. And what do I mean here? Well, we see bath complexes, barracks, which look like they would have housed enslaved people, and the ruins of large villas. But we don't see apartment buildings or fast food counters, bars, or tavernas. As I mentioned, there is no large public stadium or theater here that we think of, although there might be. I'll talk about that a little bit later. And if it was that, it certainly wasn't that during the period in which the incredibly wealthy were coming to Baiae in droves. Instead, the picture that we get is of large villas with their own complexes for staff and entertaining, meaning that these homes probably were for the mega-wealthy, and while the mega-wealthy were in residence, they weren't interested in outside entertainment like gladiatorial games or theater. They were primarily interested in showing off amongst themselves with lavish bath parties.
So I just want to get a sense of, what was the nightlife like? People didn't go out, right? I'm getting the sense that they entertained in their own villas and just had everything they needed in those villas.
Oh, Miss Williamson, it was such a wild time. We would rock up in our luxury boats. Some of us, who had both pleasure boats and villas, would be invited to go to a posh dinner at a villa. We would bathe. We would have entertainment brought to us in the villa, whether it was singing or dancing or even hand-to-hand combat. There was no reason to go anywhere else. One person would entertain. They would invite many others over, but
All of our whims were catered to in one place. And Ms. Williamson, while the villas were gorgeous, we also had houses built into the bay on stilts. And some of us chose not to be on the land at all, or on the stilts. We would just rock up in our luxury yachts and, well, float.
So you just wouldn't get off your boat at all?
Well, we might get off our boat if the entertainment was favorable enough, if the invitation was worth leaving our boat. But our boats were floating palaces.
I'm really getting Eat the Rich vibes right now.
Me too, and it's one of the weird things when I was doing the research where, like, the big thing that I found over and over again, and I can't even remember what sources were, it's like, yeah, what we don't see is that there was an actual economy based on people who would have, like, gotten things out of living here like we saw in Pompeii. Like, pretty much this was just wealthy people with really lavish baths that were probably on a private villa, just entertaining themselves and unfortunately relying on the exploitation of enslaved people. It's just wild.
Even wealthy cities today, right? You would have wealthy people in wealthy houses and stuff, but then you would need people to be the working class, like people who provided services and do all the work in fancy restaurants and everything that caters to the wealthy. You don't have that here.
And a lot of the entertainment would have been enslaved people. They might bring in entertainers from outside of the city, like maybe from the neighboring Pompeii or Naples or something. But I get the idea that a lot of what was going on in Baiae, from the research I've read, was stuff that, well, you didn't want anyone to find out about. So they were very hush-hush about their entertainment, who was doing that entertaining, and most likely it was enslaved people being forced to do things that they didn't want to do.
Or, enslaved people doing the cooking, enslaved people providing all the fancy food, like all the other services that people would normally in the modern times hopefully pay for. There wasn't an economy of people making their careers out of running restaurants for the wealthy. Those were enslaved people. And so if you wanted to eat something different, you would go to another wealthy friend's house and eat whatever their enslaved cook made, right? Like you wouldn't go out. There was no going out here.
As far as I've seen, there was no going out here. And I don't know if something sunk that we don't know about, and that would have changed potentially over time after the empire starts to decline. But, what we see for the most part, with the exception of the barracks for the fleet, and there's some stuff Nero put in later on that we'll talk about that catered to the fleet. What we see is pretty much you had a villa economy. Everything stemmed through that villa, as Jenny said. It would be most likely enslaved people. We found the barracks where they would have been. I think I read somewhere that I can't remember now where, that we found what looked like what would have been essentially barracks that would have been used as brothels. There was a lot going on in Baiae, but the point that I think they were trying to make was most of it was a big hush-hush secret, and it was all kept on these little villas and estates. And it was mostly a wealthy person being catered to incredibly lavishly by mainly enslaved people, or if there were freed people, they were freed people in the household. But there was nowhere for them to get anything unless, I guess, they left and trucked in food from other places.
There were no markets. There was nowhere to go. There's nothing to do outside of the villa. Like you're just going from wealthy villa to wealthy villa, right?
Essentially, and I'm sure they got food either by boat or by overland or whatever, or probably many of these villas had their own places to grow things because they would have been quite massive. And fish would have been there. They would have just been pulling it out of the bay. I guess what I'm really trying to say here is, like, these were kind of their own little palaces where the owner was king, and there wasn't a place for, like, a common marketplace where you could just go and do things.
Julius Caesar, what do you have to say to that?
Ms. Williamson, when one is planning what to do with matters of state and governance in the world, it is quite important to have privacy, and forgive me for enjoying myself in a place where I was given that privilege.
It's really interesting, Julius Caesar, to hear you say all this, because you really position yourself as a populist. So this is very elitist of you.
Well, Ms. Williamson, I am very much a populist. However, in order to bring about the social change that one wants to see, sometimes one has to deal with those who are not and understand their workings. Baiae was a place to do that. In fact, my villa was set a little bit apart from everyone else's so that they know I'm Julius Caesar and I don't stand for all of this shit.
Oh, sure, Julius Caesar, sure. This is the biggest bullshit I've ever heard.
And on that note, I'm going to make a drink.
So, when the Romans decided to elevate the town of Baiae to the preferred haunt of the elite, they had very good reasons for doing so. Besides the fact that Baiae was pretty centrally located to lots of important coastal towns, as we've said before, and we're going to harp on this, it also had natural hot springs because, it was volcanic. It's like Yellowstone.
It's exactly like Yellowstone. It's a supervolcano that's sunken, so like all of it is the caldera, which is wild.
These hot springs would serve as the homes to many public baths. Although the public baths that we're talking about would be for the Roman elite, so they were not open to just anyone. They were in fact not public. They were like in people's villas, right?
Mm-hmm.
These were not public baths. These were private baths.
That were bigger than some public baths that were on villas, so...
Giant palaces that were baths, which actually sounds awesome. What am I doing? I need to marry Julius Caesar and get access to these baths immediately.
You do. So, I'm not going to get into all of the sites at Baiae because there are a lot and we're still learning a lot about them. But I wanted to take a minute to talk about some of the monuments that are left, particularly the ones on land, the sunken ones, not so much. There are several major complexes in Baiae that you can see above ground, and these include the Temple of Mercury, the Temple of Venus, and the Temple of Diana. And none of these complexes were actually temples. They were, in fact, very large baths.
And that's because Julius Caesar and all of his friends like to steep themselves in each other's poop. That's what they did.
Oh, Miss Williamson, do you honestly think I would steep myself in anyone else's poop? Those who shit in baths have a special corner in Hades.
I think that's true now. I think that's been true throughout history.
All right, you two. I want to talk about the Temple of Mercury, please.
It's just that Julius Caesar and I agree on one thing.
Oh, you agree on more than one thing. That's the problem.
We do have a shockingly large amount in common, but I'm a bad person.
So, the Temple of Mercury.
I'm sorry, hold up. Jen wants to discuss the Temple of Mercury.
I told you she's a whingy little baby today.
I just wanted to talk about our mutual love of murder, but no.
Oh, Miss Williamson, I am always here to talk murder with you. Oh my God, if he was alive right now, you two would form the worst cult ever.
Except I'm not doing the emotional labor part of cult leadership, no.
Oh, no, I would be roped into that via blackmail and Julius Caesar's own emotional labor.
Who would be Allison Mack to our Keith Raniere?
We really should have rehearsed this episode. We really should have.
What we decided to do was get drunk and wing it, and this is what happened.
The Temple of Mercury. So the Temple of Mercury was built during the 1st century BC, during the late Republic, during Julius Caesar's time. When it was constructed, it contained a 71-foot diameter dome in the center. It was the largest building of its kind until the Pantheon was constructed in 128 AD. The central hall served as a skylight. In addition, there were 4 more skylights. The building was supposed to house the frigidarium, or the cold baths. Jenny, can you imagine? I've been to the Pantheon. Can you imagine how big this complex is just for cold baths?
Right, the central hall.
So the central hall met with Karahan Tepe, and they had a great evening and produced all of the baths at Baiae. You're welcome.
The megapenes of the Mesolithic, you guys. We're doing great. So anyway, let's talk about the Temple of Venus. The Temple of Venus was likely commissioned by the Emperor Hadrian. It was mistakenly called the Temple of Venus because of a statue found there. The complex is not, in fact, a temple. In his later years, Emperor Hadrian enjoyed a lavish lifestyle in his home in Baiae. He died peacefully in his villa there, and this was the most important building in the Great Bath Complex. It occupied a very large part of town. It had both indoor and external baths, and during its heyday, it was very impressive. And this is from Life, Death, and Naples. Quote, "There is a clear difference between this building, characterized by a high tambour, the circular vertical part of the cupola, with a circular internal plan, an external octagonal one with large windows, and the elementary structure of other earlier buildings in the area. The use of opus cementicum as the main building ingredient had reached perfection. This is a mixture of stone chips and strong mortar that contained pozzolana, a volcanic ash named for the town of Pozzuoli." I'm sure I pronounced all of that perfectly, right, Julius Caesar?
Oh, Ms. Williamson, I care for you far too much to criticize your pronunciation.
I have won you over. I have got you wrapped around the finger. God damn. I own you, Julius Caesar.
Oh, you don't own anything, Ms. Williamson. But you wish.
I don't have to wish. You paid my dad a bunch of talents. I love this. The power. The raw power.
Dear listeners, please send vodka. Love, Jen.
Jen needs to get drunk to tolerate me and Julius Caesar and just our vibe in general.
Dear listeners, please send bottles of the Rocks tequila.
I'm moving on. This newer technology, as well as an increasingly specialized workforce, led to the construction of buildings where space was conceived of in a different and very modern way. Mixed to linear, combining both straight and curved lines, forms of architecture started to become more widespread and were marked by bright spaces designed to be aesthetic and pleasing to the eye and not merely lived in. This Temple of Venus is so called because it really was something else, as is the case with a number of other quote-unquote temples in the area. The Temple of Serapis in Pozzuoli, for example. In this case, excavation has shown the structure to have been a thermal bath, the baths of which reached down to about 6 meters below today's visible ground level. The outer face is in brick, with large porticos of reticulatum. What is that?
I don't know.
Anyway, Jen did not see fit to look that up, so it's a mystery.
It will always be a mystery.
If you're interested, Google it. Inside, the walls were dressed with slabs of marble up to the impost of the windows and higher up with mosaic. The outside still shows traces of the original stone facing. The dome was formed by an umbrella vault. A part of the octagonal roof remains visible from the outside.
Wild. Just how big it was that you can still see part of the umbrella vault and the original roof outside. Like, when you Google the images of it, like, a lot of this stuff is difficult to describe. It is better to Google the images, and in the show notes I will put the images. But just how much of it still remains and what it looks like is just, it's next level. So our next complex is the Temple of Diana. And now this is one of the later bath complexes. It was built by Alexander Severus around 222 to 225 AD in the honor of his late mother, who he cared for greatly, I believe. Jenny knows more. She did the research on them.
Poor Alexander Severus. Poor little guy. He was one of our child emperors who was one of the lambs to the slaughter.
He was. I think his mother was very, very much tried to protect him as much as she could, so...
Oh, I think she was part of the slaughter. Like, I think she was trying to wield power through him, and kind of that led to his death. But I honestly forget the details because it's been a really long time. Check out our Child Emperors series if you want to learn more. I honestly have to re-listen myself.
Yeah. So, this complex is above ground. It's not fallen into the sea. It's a huge ogival dome that is now half collapsed. It was built in this shape to collect vapors and steam from the ground below. Now, this is a description from Cornelius de Bruin, a Dutch artist, I'm sorry if I butchered that, and traveler who visited Baiae and this temple, in quotation marks, in 1677. This is a quote from Wikipedia. I thought was the best translation I found. I'm sure it's in other places as well. Quote, "Then one arrives at the Temple of Diana, which is completely ruined, except for a semicircular structure at the top that still exists. Opposite, there is also a part of the Temple of Apollo, next to which one can see the chamber of the nymphs that delight themselves in different spectacles. At the top of it, I saw many figures and bas-reliefs, very strange and beautiful, as the entrance is still reasonably well preserved."
Ooh.
Exactly, but this was in 1677.
Yeah, but I bet it was more well preserved than it is now.
Absolutely. Well, the interesting thing about Baiae is you can wander the site and a lot of the stuff there is in ruins. But there is now a temple, there's now a museum, an archaeological museum, where a lot of the stuff that he would have just been able to see in situ has now been taken to be saved and preserved. So it's definitely worth a visit.
I want to go so bad.
Me too. Now, there are other large complexes that have remained above ground, including the Temple of Cassandra, which Nero built to house the Mycenum fleet. Now, it was not a temple. A lot of these huge buildings were originally called temples, but they weren't. Instead, what Nero built was a complex that had housing, baths, a spa, and a villa. And presumably, he built this to keep the navy close and happy, but also out of the baths and villas of the very wealthy.
Which makes sense because at that time, ancient Rome was basically a military dictatorship. So it makes sense that he would have his own personal navy right there.
Absolutely. His own sort of bug-out navy.
I bet you'd be into that, wouldn't you, Julius Caesar?
You're speaking my language. I love having a navy surrounding me at all times.
I mean, you didn't have that when it was your time.
I know, Miss Williamson, because they had such feelings about dictators.
That was like your work. They shed that after you were gone, you know.
Oh, my heart beats true for that. What a wonderful sight to see.
I'm telling you, the populist roots, forget it. Forget it.
A little bit of power and we see how the story changes. So, as well as the Temple of Cassandra, There's the Villa of the Ambulatio. This is a huge complex that starts on a mountain with the first terrace and then winds down about 6 different terraces. These terraces would have housed residents and staff, as well as commanding sweeping views of the Bay of Naples and the surrounding towns. It would have been incredible to behold, presumably as long as you were wealthy enough to enjoy it.
So, let's talk about the villas on the sea, right? Because Baiae is all about the sea. It's a sea town. So the fascinating thing here is that Baiae was a place that was built to be experienced from the water. And this is a quote from the BBC travel article by Amanda Rugari. Quote, "All of these villas, complexes, and structures were conceived in order to be seen from the sea, because the approach was from the sea. People weren't coming by land, they were coming by sea. And this is just like what Julius Caesar just said. You know, you come by boat, you stay on the boat, you hang out on your villas at the boat. Sometimes you don't even get off the boat.
If the party isn't worth getting off the boat for, then is it even a party?"
The problem with the boat, though, is you can't escape the boat. Like, whatever you're doing on the boat, you're stuck there on this boat with these people.
Oh, Miss Williamson, I was once stuck in a palace in Alexandria for a year. I can handle being on a luxury yacht for a summer if I must.
I mean, it was with Cleopatra. I guess I could handle being stuck anywhere with Cleopatra, right?
Right?
She's a really good conversationalist, okay? It's got a lot to talk about. Pele, Hawaiian goddess of volcanoes, fire, and rebirth.
Maeve, Celtic warrior queen and nemesis of heroes.
Kiyohime, Japanese fire-breathing snake demon.
Pesta, Norwegian spirit of the Black Death. Our book, Women of Myth, is a fascinating look at women and femme characters in world mythology, including goddesses, heroines, and monsters. With captivating illustrations by Ringo Award-nominated artist Sarah Richard, it's the perfect gift for the mythology lover in your life, including yourself.
Find Women of Myth wherever books are sold.
LinkedIn is pretty great at a lot of things, like helping you tap into the latest trends and insights in your field. We cannot stop your coworker from tapping her pencil. LinkedIn can help you find new jobs that align with your career goals. We cannot help you find the source of that weird smell in the office fridge. Ew. And while we can't stop your coworkers from bringing their hobbies into the office, LinkedIn can help you bring your career to the next level. LinkedIn is the network that works for you.
So anyway, this is a quote from the BBC travel article by Amanda Rugari. Quote, "All of these villas, complexes, and structures were conceived in order to be seen from the sea." Stephaniel, an archaeologist from the University of Naples L'Oriental, said as we stood on a terrace. Beyond the ruins lay a clutch of pastel homes. Past that, the glittering water. In the near distance, the slopes of Mount Vesuvius were purple in the summer haze. "We always make the mistake of putting ourselves on the ground," Stephaniel said. "But the perfect point of view to appreciate this is the sea. Just imagine being in the Gulf of Baiae and seeing this leisure resort with all these terraces and the pools and the people crowded here." In other words, Baiae was a place to be seen from the sea, and it's probable that the best place to view these homes, when not from the water, would have been from the mountains that surrounded it, i.e. Julius Caesar probably had a great location for his villa.
Oh, Miss Williamson, I could see it either from my yacht or from my villa in the mountains, and one could enjoy the pleasures of Baiae and also retreat from the chaos of Baiae when one must.
I mean, it seems like there really wasn't any chaos at Baiae. It was all, rigidly controlled by the rich, right?
Well, it was sexy chaos, Miss Williamson, and one can get tired of sexy chaos sometimes.
I think Jen's about to tell us about some of the other chaos at Baiae, right, Jen?
Yeah, and, Jenny had asked me about this. There were pylons that people had built on kind of like sort of houses on stilts and things like that at different times. I don't know exactly when that would have been or how that would have worked. Presumably they were built on stilts and pylons and they lasted as long as they lasted and then they fell into the sea. I mean, we see some evidence of it, but we don't necessarily see evidence of like a grand structure,
Okay, so there weren't like giant villas that were on pylons.
I don't think so, no. I don't think they would have been giant villas. I think they would have been more like a temporary structure, like think Caligula's Bridge, which we're going to discuss in a little bit, or maybe something that was created for some epic show that maybe, or, didn't last.
Gotcha. So like a temporary thing.
That's what I think, but I mean, I've read it in different places. I think some stuff they're just still discovering. And, you know, this is the research I was able to come up with that was credible enough for me to cite. So, what actually happened in Baiae, and did it stay in Baiae? Well, there were those lush baths and homes at Baiae, baths that only the wealthy got to use. But what actually happened here, and why was it called the Sin City of Rome? Well, Jenny, it's my favorite time of the episode. It's time to dive into the backstabbing, plotting, skullduggery, and murder that happened here. And, you know, swoon be still my heart, I get murder and volcanoes. So we've actually talked about Baiae a lot already. You just didn't realize we were talking about it. When we discussed the famous Julio-Claudians, we mentioned Baiae more than a few times. In the late Republic, all the wealthy had their homes here. As we've mentioned, Marius, Julius Caesar, Pompey, Cicero. And once Augustus took over, he made large swaths of Baiae an imperial property because he was a dick like that. According to legend, Baiae was the place where Agrippina the Younger poisoned her husband, Claudius. Now, this is a quote from a BBC travel article by Adrienne Bernhard. Quote, "There are many tales of intrigue associated with Baiae," said John Smote, a researcher who has partnered with local archaeologists to study the site. Rumor has it that Cleopatra escaped in her boat from Baiae after Julius Caesar was murdered in 44 BC, while Julia Agrippina plotted her husband Claudius's death at Baiae so her son Nero could become emperor of Rome. She poisoned Claudius with deadly mushrooms, Smote explained, but he somehow survived, so that same night, Agrippina got her physician to administer an enema of poisonous wild gourd, which finally did the trick. Hold up, this is actually the first time I've ever heard about the enema of poisonous wild gourd. I'm weirdly here for this theory.
I feel like what I have heard is that when the original mushroom poison didn't work, they put a feather down his throat to try to get him to throw up, but the feather had poison on it. So this is indeed the first time I've heard about this gourd enema situation.
Same, and I did all the research on Agrippina. So this is literally the first time I've seen it. I don't know where it's floating from. I included it because it was kind of fun, but
BBC Travel says it's true, so it must be true. I mean, they have British accents. Like, what more do you need?
Yeah, people with British accents never lie about anything, ever.
That's true. Absolutely true.
They never did anything bad if you have a British accent.
Dominance. This is some real colonialist shit we're getting into here.
Oh, Miss Williamson, is it called colonialism if one takes the land in conquest through hard-earned spoils? One thinks not. Julius Caesar, that's the definition!
It is!
Oh, you're the worst.
So Agrippina the Younger herself would meet her end here at Baiae on March 23rd, 59 AD. Her son Nero, if you remember, rigged a wacky collapsible boat for her to sail back to her villa in because she went across the bay to do some kind of a party with him or a celebration or something. And then he's like, "Oh no, don't take your own boat. Take my wacky collapsible boat that I've prepared for you." The boat did collapse, sort of, but Agrippina survived because she happened to have a really badass backstroke.
Not backstroke. She had a really badass freestyle crawl, or maybe a breaststroke, but she was not backstroking into shore, Jenny.
Might have been a butterfly stroke.
I get Agrippina. Agrippina was the sort of person who was a good distance swimmer, and thankfully for that, but there's no way she backstroked it.
So anyway, Agrippina survived the wacky collapsible boat. Agrippina made her way back to her villa, unharmed. Years later, she was murdered by Nero's Praetorian guards, once again at her villa in Baiae.
I don't think it was years later. I think she was murdered that same time by Nero's men.
I think it wasn't. I think it was much later.
Okay, let's recap. So what happened was they were both in Baiae at the same time. This was like some summer festival. They were out doing something. I don't remember what exactly. She had to cross the bay to get back to her villa. And so Nero was like, "Here, mummy." And he definitely said mummy, even though he was an emperor because he was a weirdo. He's like, "Here, mummy, take this beautiful new boat that I have named for you." I don't know if he said he had named it for her, but probably did. "Back to your villa. It is yours." And she was like, "This seems sus, but I'm a good swimmer. I gotcha." And she went in, and there was sort of this little roof on it, probably that held something to keep the sun out of her face. That collapsed because it was made of lead, and it was supposed to sink the boat. It didn't quite do that. And Agrippina, as I mentioned, was a very strong swimmer. She got to shore. She was met there by soldiers who presumably were of her own guard, who brought her back to her house. And she stayed there for, it's difficult to know if it was that night or the next day. Then Nero sent assassins. And I vaguely remember in the research, and I could be getting this wrong, that Nero tried to send a few different assassins, but they were very hesitant to kill her because she was the daughter of Germanicus. So he had to get like assassins who were kind of the younger guard, who were not that interested in who her daddy was. And then he sent them to kill her.
He has Misenum right there, right? Like, so he has like the Navy right there. So presumably he has soldiers right there. So he was like ready for this.
He was ready for this. I imagine Seneca might have been involved in that as well. Like, we give Nero all the credit, but he had a lot of people pulling those puppet strings until he didn't.
Julius Caesar, do you have anything to add? This is your descendant.
There's so much slander about my descendants. I mean, they're obviously very intelligent people. They did great things. The fleet was moved to a sensible area. Look at Agrippina, all those purges she survived. I mean, one does what one must in order to shape an empire. Even poor Claudius with his gourd enema. I mean, he did finish my conquest of Britain. I suppose that's something.
Yeah, but you really have to hand it to Agricola, right? Like, he was the architect of that.
Oh, Miss Williamson, one knows that if you are not a great warrior, like me or Germanicus or Agrippa, one must surround oneself with those who can do those things, and then let you come along later and unfurl your mission-accomplished banner.
That's absolutely what's going on there with the Claudius situation.
Now, Jenny, did you know that Baiae is actually where the quote-unquote tomb of Agrippina is supposed to be located? So it's not actually a tomb. It was actually the Emperor Claudius's nympheum, and the ruins of this building still stand. I had to quote from the official Italia website because I wasn't sure and there was a lot of conflicting stuff, so this is what it tells you it is. Quote, this structure, originally an Odeon or theater for music or shows, dating back to the Augustan or Julian Claudian age, was transformed into an exedra nympheum between the end of the 1st and the beginning of the 2nd century AD. The monument consists of 3 hemicycles arranged on several levels. The first is about 1.5 meters below the current beach level. The second is protected by a ramped vault, on which the steps in opus rectilium are still visible. 3 openings interspersed with windows adorn the outer wall. At a lower level is another hemicycle, the vault of which has collapsed, and whose inner wall is marked by stucco half-columns with Corinthian capitals, divided into small rooms by transverse partitions. The vaults and walls of the niches and windows, as well as the corridor that originally connected the building to the villa, are decorated with stucco. So a nympheum, right, is a building, generally around a hot springs, that has been consecrated to the nymphs, or the nymphs who live there. And that's why that shape is super important. It was, at one point in time before Claudius, it was used as a theater, as an odeum, but then it was reconsecrated to the nymphs who lived in the hot water there. Imagine, they've got all those circles to like dedicate to the different layers that you would be going down to reach the baths and water.
Okay, so it was kind of like a multi-level bath that was dedicated to various nymphs and was also kind of a religious temple?
Both. It was like a monument. Yeah, we're going to go there one day.
Gotcha. Oh my gosh, I want to go there.
I think it became known as the tomb of Agrippina the Younger because at some point in time, there was an inscription on this, and I found this somewhere. I'm not sure how accurate it was, that it was like dedicated to the beauty of Agrippina and obviously the nymphs, but it isn't her tomb. As far as I know, no one is buried there, or if there is someone buried there, it's not Agrippina the Younger. And we know it's not Agrippina the Younger because we don't actually know where she's buried. And that's because when she was buried, scholars believe that she was, at least during the reign of Nero, buried somewhere where he couldn't find her.
So do you want to hear some more batshit stuff about Julius Caesar's descendants?
Oh, always. Please. I feel the need for Caligula. Is it going to be about Caligula? Oh, Miss Williamson, Caligula was a nightmare. Could we expunge him from the family record?
I think people tried. I mean, wasn't he Damnatio Memoriae?
I mean, he was, but unfortunately, we still seem to be talking about that little scamp.
It's funny because the people who are Damnatio Memoriae are the most famous these days.
It's really true. Like, they're the ones who had all the good goss, and everyone's like, let me tell you.
So, according to legend, in 39 AD, Caligula built a bridge over the Bay of Baiae to ride his horses across it. The story goes that the Roman astrologer Thrasyllus, we'll go with that, predicted that Caligula had, quote, no more chance of becoming emperor than of riding a horse across the Gulf of Baiae. Them's fighting words, is what Caligula said. So Caligula decided to build a fuck you bridge, allegedly.
Oh, I love a fuck you bridge.
I love any kind of fuck you construction at all, let me tell you what. Across the Bay of Baiae. This is a quote from an article on ancient origins. Quote, it is said that in 39 AD, Construction of the bridge began. Caligula wanted a bridge that he could ride triumphantly across it in his carriage. This idea alone seems to confirm that Caligula may have been suffering from some form of madness, as it is hard to imagine an emperor spending his time riding a carriage across a bridge with no real purpose for doing so. Anyway, according to Roman historian Suetonius, our buddy, the bridge spanned more than 3 miles across the bay from the town of Baiae to the neighboring port of Puteoli. Pontoons from around the region were used to build the bridge, with sand poured over them. Caligula then draped himself in a gold cloak, donned the breastplate of Alexander the Great, which apparently still existed, and crossed the bridge on his horse. The bridge was constructed to contain resting points for pauses in Caligula's ride. These resting points also contained drinkable water. According to further legends, traces of the mythical bridge could be seen into the 18th century. What traces? Were they like pylons into the sea?
We don't know. It's definitely legend. Like, there are some people who are like, the bridge never existed. There was nothing to see. Some people are like, look at this bit of wood. It's really hotly debated. Like, the local people are very much like, look, this bit of wood is from Caligula's bridge. And other people are like, no, it's not. Stop.
Oh, gotcha. So this is like very tenuous, all of this.
Well, I mean, the whole thing is like legend. I mean, is it something I could imagine Caligula taking the like might and the ingenuity of the Roman Empire to like build this bridge? Oh, fuck yeah. But also, it could also be vastly like fake, because it's just so tough to know. The sources are what we've got, but they're also a bit wild. So, Cicero was said to have a villa in Baiae where he composed many of his famous speeches. I like to think they were probably the ones taking down Mark Antony.
Julius Caesar! Cicero! Did he write the Philippics in Baiae?
Oh, Ms. Williamson, those two did not get along. I told them both, just fuck it out, but no. Cicero could not handle Mark Antony's rude health, or the fact that Mark Antony seemed to have things handed to him with very little work and a lot of charisma, and Mark Antony, bless him, was not the sharpest of tools.
No, but he really did get a lot of things handed to him, didn't he?
Well, yes, Miss Williamson, because people seem to like him, particularly the soldiers, and when one is a working populist, one does not deny what will work for one's image.
I mean, I will say that Mark Antony, I think, really benefited from the charisma of a mediocre white dude.
Well, Miss Williamson, it would be terrible to speak ill of the dead, but one would not disagree with that statement.
I don't know, like 90% of what we do on this podcast is speak ill of the dead, so if you don't like that, then I guess you don't belong here.
Well, Miss Williamson, remember, I have a very complicated history with Marcus Antonius, so less said about that the better. Let's get back to other things, like my villa. So, as we've said, Julius Caesar had a villa in Baiae, and according to Seneca, JC's villa was built into the mountains, away from the riotous noise of town. Now, slow your roll, Julius Caesar. I'll give you a minute to rebuff Seneca, but I want to talk a little bit about the kink shamers here, because Baiae had a lot of kink shamers.
I just want to know what Julius Caesar has to say about Seneca.
Oh, Miss Williamson, if ever there was a killjoy. Thankfully, I don't think we walk the earth together, because I would have really had to take him out and get him a little bit plastered, because the man had absolutely no fun in just whinging in his life. Do you know, he was exiled for sleeping with my great-grandniece, and he had the nerve to be upset and whine about it. She stoically went to her grave. He begged and pleaded to be brought back. What a dingus.
Seriously, you know what? Seneca had his fun. What's he doing shaming other people?
Yeah, Seneca was beyond wealthy. He literally started a whole war with the Iceni people and other people in Britain over, essentially, debt that he felt they owed him. I mean, he made a right mess of things and got so many of our colonies in Britain burnt to the ground by that upstart Boudica. I mean, honestly, Miss Williamson, for a stoic, he had a lot of opinions that were very much based in taking other people's property and wealth.
Look, I don't trust any of those dudes, present company included.
Well, Miss Williamson, you should trust me, but the others, not at all.
Would you respect me if I trusted you?
I like it that we have this little witty repartee, that we go back and forth and pretend like we're not exactly the same person.
I'm really horrified right now. I'm just genuinely horrified. Can we move on?
You should be.
Julius Caesar sees down to my soul once again. I'm going to continue to drink.
Right, I want to talk about the Baiae kink shamers now.
Refreshing wild cherry cola meets smooth cream. The treat you deserve. Pepsi Wild Cherry and Cream. Treat yourself.
Baiae had its own collection of kink shamers, shall we say. Now, not everyone was on board with the lascivious, boozy, backstabbing lifestyle at Baiae. As always, just like we have Saturnalia killjoys, there were Baiae killjoys. The people who just weren't down with all those vices. Because as long as there was fun to be had at Baiae, there were people around to shame other people for partaking in said fun.
This begins all the way back with Horace, by the way.
It probably begins sooner than that, but that's the earliest record I found.
So Horace was a Roman poet who lived from 65 BC to 27 BC, so he was around Julius Caesar's lifetime. Did they know each other? I don't know, but I think they lived at the same time.
We did. He was a killjoy.
So Horace had absolutely no good words at all for Baiae, let me tell you what. Baiae during this time had building projects both on land and jutting out into the sea, as we've said. This is a quote again from BBC Travel. This is an article by Amanda Rigari. Quote, "Luxury was right. Not content with building on land, wealthy Romans erected pylons and built their villas directly over the sea itself. Horace, rather more prudish than Propertius, reprimanded his countrymen in 23 BC for the immodesty of such actions." Quote within the quote, "You, on the brink of the grave, contract for the cutting of marble slabs, forgetful of death you fret to build your mansion out from the coast in the roaring sea at Baiae, the mainland shore will not suffice." He's shaming people for building sea villas. Horace was not a fan of the lavish buildings in Baiae, either on land or on sea, but especially the sea seemed to really grate him. You know what? Eat the rich, Horace. I don't disagree with you.
Yeah, but let's be honest. For Horace to get there, he had to know someone or be someone rich enough to have a yacht or a villa there.
Right, so he's already the thing he hates.
So, the Roman poet Sextus Propertius, who already appeared, he's a contemporary of Horace, also wrote about the perils of Baiae. And this is a quote again from that same article by Amanda Rigari. Quote, "But Baiae wasn't just a spa retreat. It was a party town, a place for Romans to bathe and banquet, flirt and frolic. In one of his many elegies to his lover and muse, Cynthia, even the poet Sextus Propertius, no great prude, wrote," and she's saying he wasn't a prude, let's see about that, "wrote despairingly in 25 BC, and this is a quote within the quote, "But you must quickly leave degenerate Baiae. These beaches bring divorce to many. Beaches for long the enemy of decent girls. A curse on Baiae's water. Love's disgrace."
So I feel like on the one hand, here are these like kink shamers criticizing these degenerate girls wandering the beach topless or whatever.
And remember, many of those girls might have been enslaved and not have had a choice but to wander the beach topless.
Yeah, so like he's criticizing women for doing things that women are now enslaved and required to do. But on the other hand, I also get a real eat the rich vibe. These are rich assholes. There's nothing about Baiae that is like anything but like for the elite of the elite. And anybody who's at Baiae is either one of the wealthy or an enslaved person. But the other aspect of this is that anybody commenting on the life of Baiae is involved in the life of Baiae, so they're also one of the elite rich people who deserves to be eaten. So you can't really trust any of these people criticizing Baiae. Look, if you know enough about Baiae to complain about Baiae, then you are part of the problem of Baiae.
It was the rich people who were like, this is too decadent even for me, and I'm a rich asshole. Okay, but none of these rich guys who were commenting about how bad Baiae is while still probably being a part of the system could match the disdain of one Seneca. Seneca had his own villa in Baiae. In his mind, a tasteful distance up the mountains or hillside, but he absolutely loathed Baiae. He loathed it to his core, and he wrote an incredible screed about it. It was so wild that I called Jenny up and made her listen to me reading it, the whole thing, while she was on the treadmill. We both agreed that it was so ridiculous that you all needed to be subjected to it and hear this shit.
I got my 10,000 steps in, you guys.
So Seneca was famously a stoic and statesman. He was an advisor to Nero. He spent a good deal of time in Baiae during the reign of Nero. As I mentioned earlier, He was exiled during the reign of Claudius for having an affair with Julia Livilla, who was the youngest of Germanicus's daughters. Seneca was able to return from that exile, and he eventually took up a position at the side of Nero after Claudius was unfortunately done away with. Seneca then was at Nero's side. He wrote a very famous version of, I believe it was Medea and other Greek plays in Latin that he had Nero learn and study from. Seneca retired from public life and spent his later years composing a book of letters on Stoicism. Meanwhile, he was the man who literally whined about missing his wife and his home and everything else when he was in exile, famously in his letters. Anyway, so Seneca wrote these letters on Stoicism between 63 and 65 AD. He was later ordered to take his own life by Nero in 68 AD, when Nero believed that Seneca had been involved in a plot to have him assassinated. Was he involved in a plot to have Nero assassinated? I'm not sure. Did Seneca regret his hand in advising Nero to have his own mother killed? Maybe. They were rivals.
Here is what Seneca had to say about Baiae. And like we say, this dude is 100%. He's in it up to his neck, you guys.
And this letter comes from Letters on a Stoic, which was written between 63 to 65 AD.
This is from his letter called On Baiae and Morals from Letters from a Stoic.
You know what? I shall start this, and then you can check in on the next paragraph. Quote, "Every man does the best he can, my dear Lucilius. You, over there, have Etna, that lofty and most celebrated mountain of Sicily. Although I cannot make out why Massala, or was it Valgius, for I have been reading in both, has called it unique, inasmuch as many regions belch forth fire, not merely the lofty ones, where the phenomenon is more frequent, presumably because fire rises to the greatest possible height, but low-lying places also. As for myself, I do the best I can. I have had to be satisfied with Baiae, and I left it the day after I reached it, for Baiae is a place to be avoided, because, though it has certain natural advantages, luxury has claimed it for her own exclusive resort."
Okay, Seneca, you're up to your neck in it.
I know, Ms. Williamson, I'm enjoying reading this terribly. Oh, what a little brat. Let me continue then.
Continue, please.
Quote, "What then, you say? Should any place be singled out as an object of aversion? Not at all. But, just as to the wise and upright man, one style of clothing is more suitable than another, without his having an aversion for any particular color, but because he thinks that some colors do not befit one who has adopted the simple life, so there are also places which the wise man, or he who is on the way toward wisdom, will avoid as foreign to good morals. Therefore, if he is contemplating withdrawal from the world, he would not select Canopus, although Canopus does not keep any man from living simply, nor Baiae either, for both places have begun to be resorts of vice. At Canopus, luxury pampers itself to the utmost degree. At Baiae, it is even more lax, as if the place itself demanded a certain amount of license." I mean, again, Seneca's like, I could only spend a day there and then I had to leave. Oh, only a day? Okay.
Only a day. Do you have your own private villa there? Yes, you do.
You do, Seneca. I mean, the thing about Seneca that always bothers me is I find Stoicism a very difficult philosophy. Some of it is, as I've talked many times about my ADHD and the emotional dysregulation that comes with ADHD, and this sort of value a lot of people place on being stoic in your emotions and keeping it all in. And, a lot of that comes from a lot of the ancient Stoics in general. And you have, Seneca here, who's just being such a blowhard. He's got this villa in Baiae. He, as we're going to talk about in a little bit, pretty much started a war in Britain. He's done all of these things under the guise of I'm rational and reasonable and a stoic and I've retired from public life, but also let me tell you how bad public life is. It's I just can't buy any of it. It's that one rule for him and another rule for everyone else.
It's just the hypocrisy, right? Stoicism that I idealize, but clearly there's something going on here under the surface that he's not admitting to.
Well, and I respect the fact, and I will say this, that he's if you want to live a simple life and you want to be on this simple path towards wisdom, maybe you don't buy the flashiest clothes and maybe you don't live in Baiae where it is all about vice and money and all that kind of stuff. I can respect that, but I'm also I don't know.
Seneca was the top of the top. Like, he's clearly not doing that. And even dudes who did do that legitimately, like in the ancient Roman Republic, let's say Cato was doing it at people. Like, he was doing it the most obnoxious way possible.
I mean, the thing about Stoicism and those kind of like movements where they are very much started, like, I feel the same way about Thoreau and his like back to nature. And I'm like, yeah, it's great. And I understand what you're talking about and you're right. But you come from a place of privilege where that's something you can do, where you don't have to worry about certain things like clothing your children or getting food for the winter because you have a financial security net.
I feel like it's really hard to credibly be a Stoic at all if you have an enslaved staff of people.
Yeah, exactly. This is a person who he wants a bath is done for him. He wants food appears before him. Like, yes, he can eat the simpler food, and it doesn't change the fact that someone else is doing that work for him. He doesn't have to do that labor. All these great philosophers and thinkers, they had someone else who was doing the work so that they were able to, and the work in their household, and then many of them owned latifundias or other farms or whatever else that enabled them to have all this free time and wealth and luxury to think.
Julius Caesar, do you have any thoughts before we move on?
It is great when some of these great men really, really do themselves in with their own bluster. Oh, I wish I had popcorn.
But also, I mean, Julius Caesar is one of these guys, so I'm sure you appreciate the irony. Do you appreciate the irony, Julius Caesar?
Oh, Ms. Williamson, I do, but I'm not a Stoic who claimed that I didn't want the privileges of the world. Please. Yes, I could rough it with my soldiers, and I many times was fighting for my own life on the front lines. Obviously, I mean, that's what a man does sometimes when he must. But I also enjoyed living in luxury, especially in my later years with Queen Cleopatra. I am who I am, and I'm unabashedly not ashamed of that. I feel a bit like Seneca might be ashamed of who he is.
Well, I think that's actually really true. I mean, Julius Caesar kind of lived on all spectrums. And Seneca's like pretending that he's not what he is here. That's absolutely true.
Yeah, he's pretending he didn't start a war. It's hard for me not to agree about Seneca.
We're just all agreeing with Julius Caesar. It's fine. So anyway, I'm going to read this paragraph. We continue with this quote from Seneca. We ought to select abodes which are wholesome, not only for the body, but also for the character. Just as I do not care to live in a place of torture, neither do I care to live in a cafe, to witness persons wandering drunk along the beach, the riotous reveling of sailing parties, the lakes adin with choral song, and all the other ways in which luxury, when it is, so to speak, released from the restraints of law, not merely sins, but blazons its sins abroad. Why must I witness all this? We ought to see to it that if we flee to the greatest possible distance from provocations to vice, we should toughen our minds and remove them far from the allurements of pleasure. A single winter relaxed Hannibal's fiber. His pampering in Campania took the vigor out of that hero who had triumphed over alpine snows. He conquered with his weapons, but was conquered by his vices. We, too, have a war to wage, a type of warfare in which there is allowed no rest or furlough. To be conquered, in the first place, are pleasures, which, as you see, have carried off even the sternest characters. If a man has once understood how great is the task which he has entered upon, he will see that there must be no dainty or effeminate conduct. What have I to do with those hot baths, or with the sweating room where they shut in the dry steam, which is to drain your strength? Perspiration should flow only after toil.
Suppose we did what Hannibal did, check the course of events, give up the war, and give over our bodies to be coddled. Oh my God. Everyone would rightly blame us for our untimely sloth, a thing fraught with peril even for the victor, to say nothing of one who is only on the way to victory. And we have even less right to do this than those followers of the Carthaginian flag, for our danger is greater than theirs if we slacken, and our toil is greater than theirs if we press ahead.
It's weird that he's fixating on, like, the Second Carthaginian War for some reason.
I know, it's so weird. Fortune is fighting against me, and I shall not carry out her commands. I refuse to submit to the yoke. Nay, rather, I shake off the yoke that is upon me, an act which demands even greater courage. The soul is not to be pampered. No, do not pamper that soul. Surrendering to pleasure also means surrendering to pain, surrendering to toil, surrendering to poverty. Both ambition and anger will wish to have the same rights over me as pleasure, and I shall be torn asunder, or rather pulled to pieces amid these conflicting passions. I have set freedom before my eyes, and I am striving for that reward. And what is freedom, you ask? It means not being a slave to any circumstance, to any constraint, to any chance. It means compelling fortune to enter the lists on equal terms. Oh, Seneca, please, as if you've ever had a dalliance with Lady Fortune. What do you know of Fortune turning her back against you at places like Elysia? Please, Seneca, I'm going to continue on. And on the day when I know that I have the upper hand, her power will be naught. When I have death in my own control, shall I take orders from her? I mean, Seneca, that's real fucked up, man. I'm just saying this here. He's like, when I have power over death, I'm not going to take orders from Fortune. I'm like, wow. I'm going to continue now, ladies. Quote, therefore, a man occupied with such reflections should choose an austere and pure dwelling place. The spirit is weakened by surroundings that are too pleasant, and without a doubt one's place of residence can contribute towards impairing its vigor. Animals whose hooves are hardened on rough ground can travel any road, but when they are fattened on soft, marshy meadows, Animals whose hooves are hardened on rough ground can travel any road, but when they are fattened on soft, marshy meadows, their hooves are soon worn out. The bravest soldier comes from rock-ribbed regions, but the town-bred and home-bred are sluggish in action. The hand which turns from the plough to the sword never objects to toil, but your sleek and well-dressed dandy quails at the first cloud of dust. Being trained in a rugged country strengthens the character and fits it for great undertakings. Oh my God, Miss Williamson, he's such a fucking blowhard. I can't read anymore. Can you take over, please? He knows nothing about which he speaks. I mean, this is never a man who's had to dress in a moustache and disguises to save his own life.
If you're not wearing a moustache, are you even trying?
I mean, your friend, Alaric of the Visigoths, definitely knew about moustache.
You're just wrong. Stop. You and Jen are both like this with the moustache. Stop it.
I will not stop.
Lies.
Can you keep going? Because I'm so drunk and I still have to walk my dog.
Anyway, it was more honorable in Scipio. I think we're still talking about Hannibal and the, Second Carthaginian War. To spend his exile at Liternum, then at Baiae, his downfall did not need a setting so effeminate. Okay. Those also into whose hands the rising fortunes of Rome first transferred the wealth of the state, Gaius Marius, Gnaeus Pompey, and Caesar, that Caesar, did indeed build villas near Baiae.
Oh, fuck yeah, I did.
I know, that's one of the things about you, not even ashamed of it. But they set them on the very tops of the mountains. This seemed more soldier-like, to look down from a lofty height upon lands spread far and wide below.
Or I had enough money to have both a villa up and situated away, and a luxury yacht to float in the midst of it. I mean, honestly, Seneca, I thought you were intelligent, and clearly you know nothing about anything.
It is soldier-like to always put your villa on the high ground.
Yes, of course.
So we agree with Seneca there.
Yes, but he's neglecting the wealth of my yacht. God. And all the other villas I was able to commandeer if I wanted them closer to town.
And so anyway, this seemed more soldier-like to look down from a lofty height upon lands spread far and wide below. Not wrong. Note the situation, position, and type of building which they chose. You will see that they were not country places. They were camps. Do you suppose that Cato would ever have dwelt in a pleasure palace, that he might count the lewd women as they sailed past, the many kinds of barges painted in all sorts of colors, the roses which were wafted about the lake, or that he might listen to the nocturnal brawls of serenaders? Would he not have preferred to remain in the shelter of a trench thrown up by his own hands to serve for a single night? Would he not have preferred to sleep in a ditch than hang out at Baiae with all the lewd women?
Sure, but he was very much performatively, living at you. Living his low-rent poverty at you, when he, meanwhile, had, this whole machine behind him to let him walk around barefoot and still have all the things he needed.
Anyway, Would not anyone who is a man have his slumbers broken by a war trumpet rather than by a chorus of serenaders? Says Seneca. But I have been haranguing against Baiae long enough, although I never could harangue often enough against vice. Vice, Lucilius, is what I wish you to proceed against, without limit and without end. For it was neither limit nor end. If any vice rend your heart, cast it away from you. And if you cannot be rid of it any other way, pluck out your heart also.
Pluck out your heart.
Who invited Cucullin to this party?
I'm always here when it gets real metal. Stay away from my fiancé, Caesar.
Oh my goodness, I love it. You guys should fight each other. In the nude.
Cucullin, you're in the nude. Caesar, you can wear those red boots. Miss Williamson, you know I will have him murdered. I mean, it's me, but, you know, there is another reality where you, me, and Cucullin have a very nice life together. Let's aim for that. Continue this blowhard letter.
Oh, I forgot about how you are bisexual. Okay, interesting. Into it.
Exactly.
I'm so glad we introduced the two of you.
Oh, God, why?
We were talking about this guy, Lucilius. Above all, drive pleasures from your sight. No fun whatsoever. Do not have any fun. Hate them beyond all other things. For pleasures, they are like the bandits whom the Egyptians call lovers. Hot. Who embrace us only to garrote us. Again, hot. Farewell.
We finally got to the end of that, and there is a lot to unpack from this privileged monster's letter. As we've said, this is a guy who literally caused a genocide in Great Britain because of essentially what would boil down to today, unpaid student loans. Tell us what Cassius Dio says, Jenny, because it's pretty dramatic.
Quote, an excuse for the war, and we're talking about the Boudica War, was found in the confiscation of the sums of money that Claudius had given to the foremost Britons. For these sums, as Decianus Catus, the procurator of the island, maintained, were to be paid back. This was one reason for the uprising. Another was found in the fact that Seneca, in the hope of receiving a good rate of interest, had lent to the islanders 40 million sesterces that they did not even want. They didn't even want those sesterces, and had afterwards called in this loan all at once and had resorted to severe measures in exacting it. So historians have argued about what this means. Some scholars believe that this never happened and was a hatchet job by Dio against Seneca. Others think maybe it did happen on purpose to give the Romans an excuse to annex Iceni territory, which Cassius Dio kind of alludes to. So it's all a big mystery. I don't know. Seneca was an asshole. I think we can all agree on that. Fuck you, Seneca.
Fuck you, Seneca. Anyway, what happened to Baiae, Jenny? So, we've just discussed what Baiae would have looked like during its heyday, but what happened after Rome fell? Well, the fortunes of Baiae also fell. Without the Roman elite to visit the baths and villas, the town began to fall into disrepair. Much of Baiae was submerged into the sea during the 8th century. Remember, Baiae was built directly on a supervolcano, and those tend to breathe and move. It happens due to a process called bradyseism, when an underground magma chamber fills and empties. When it does this, the ground above rises and lowers. This can also be accompanied by earthquakes. The ground that Baiae was built on has dropped significantly several times in its past. The first appears to have happened sometime between 200 and 400 AD, which was still in the imperial era of ancient Rome. A second occurred 100 years later, putting a large amount of the city into the sea. By the 700s AD, the lower part of the town was almost entirely submerged. What wasn't submerged was sacked by raiding Muslims and Visigoths and other quote-unquote barbarians, and by the 1500s, the site was largely abandoned due to a malaria outbreak. In short, the playground of the rich and famous, built on the roiling land of a supervolcano, was claimed by the very thing that had made it covetable, the hot springs that lay beneath its surface.
And for a long time, Baiae would have been forgotten, a footnote in the annals of the ancient texts, if not for something that happened in the 1940s. And this is from an article, once again, from BBC Travel by Adrienne Bernhard called Ancient Rome's Sinful City at the Bottom of the Sea. Quote, Tourist interest in the once popular coastline was only renewed in the 1940s when a pilot shared an aerial photo of an edifice just below the ocean's surface. Soon, geologists puzzled over boreholes left by mollusks on ruins found near the shore, telltale signs that part of the hillside had once dipped below sea level. 2 decades later, Italian officials commissioned a submarine to survey the underwater parts of the city. What they found was fascinating. Since Roman times, underground pressure has caused the land surrounding Baiae to continuously rise and fall, pushing the ancient ruins upwards towards the sea's surface before slowly swallowing them again, a kind of geological purgatory. The ruins beneath the sea's surface were the province of just a few intrepid archaeologists until recently. The underwater archaeological site was not formally designated a marine protected area, and until 2002, which is when it was open to the public. Since then, 3D scanning technology and other advances in marine archaeology have offered first-time glimpses into this chapter of antiquity. Divers, historians, and photographers have captured submerged rotundas and porticos, including the famed Temple of Venus, not a temple. Definitely not a temple, but a thermal sauna. Discoveries that have in turn provided clues to Rome's most outrageous debauchery.
And just like that, Baiae was excavated and its treasures brought to the surface once more. Much of the site still lies beneath the sea, but statues, including one of Zeus, Octavia, Augustus' sister, and Odysseus, have been brought to the surface and are now kept in local museums. And this is a quote from the Amanda Rigari article about the work being done to protect and preserve the statues and mosaics at the bottom of the sea. Quote, Barbara David, Stephanie's boss, and the director of the unit of underwater archaeology at Italy's Central Institute for Restoration, has been working at Baiae since 1993. One of the main problems for the artifacts underwater, she says, is marine life. Bacteria, bivalves, sponges, a dizzying array of organisms not only make their home in the sea, but also have a penchant for stone and marble materials. If you leave these artifacts open, for example, uncovered by sand, the marine organisms immediately start to colonize and live on the surface. They start to destroy and attack the materials, she said. Later, in her lab in Rome, David showed me what she meant. While the mosaic might look undisturbed to the naked eye, under a microscope, each was a web of holes and divots. At the Archaeological Museum of Campi Flegrei, one piece of artwork after another shows the damage animals can do. While it's common to see ancient Roman statues missing arms and heads, the items in this collection are different. A veiled woman has been so disfigured, she looks as formless as a ghost. A base with a dedication to the Emperor Hadrian loses all shape at the top, like a half-melted candle. My favorite, however, is a 74-centimeter statue of Zeus on his throne, dating to the 1st century BC. His right side is covered with what looks like white scrawlings, the remnants of marine incrustations. Holes that start to dot his torso turn his right arm into a handless sponge. His other side, which was presumably buried in sand, is practically pristine, the folds of his toga still sharp. The other sculptures in the museum are now safe from marine organisms, but the artifacts that remain below the sea, including the precious floors that make up the largest collection of underwater Roman mosaics in the world, remain at risk. Isn't that wild? It's just so fascinating. One side, the toga, you can still see the crisp folds, and the other side, it's almost formless. Like the statue from Hadrian's era, where it looks like a melted candle.
It just makes me think of all these statues under the sea, and they're all sort of formless ghosts at this point that have been worn down by mollusks and time.
It reminds me of the ghost boats, the plague of Justinian, just the sea and all its secrets and the things that circle it, both below and beneath, and all the things they keep from us. Whew.
The black-robed, formless specters crisscrossing the Mediterranean and bringing the Black Death everywhere, and they are definitely not hot.
They might be a little hot.
I mean...
Don't ask Drunk Jen. Drunk Jen's like, hey, hottie.
Drunk Jenny is just going to encourage that, so... Julius Caesar is absolutely not going to normalize this for us, right, Julius Caesar?
Oh, Ms. Williamson, I would love to hear more about sexy ghosts.
I think you should listen to our episode on the plague of Justinian.
Oh no, that was a downer. I did listen to that episode. It was not enjoyable.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to bust your fun time there in the afterlife.
You should apologize.
No, I'm not going to apologize for talking about the plague of Justinian. Never.
You already did. Anyway, can we please finish this episode?
Okay, there are a few other sites like Baiae in the world where so much of the ruins are under the sea. And not just under the sea, this site is open to the public in many places. You can go on scuba, snorkeling, or glass-bottom boat rides and visit the site. The tourism is monitored by local guides and authorities, and all of the statues in the site are now reproductions. So the original mosaic floors and foundations of buildings are all original and open to not just human tourism, but the movements of ocean currents and the marine life like jellyfish, dolphins, and whales. It is a living, breathing site that literally breathes with the movement of the supervolcano beneath its surface. However, I think these physical statues have been taken out of the site. The physical statues have been put in a museum outside of the sea, and then all the statues that are under the sea are reproductions at this point.
That's what we just said. They're all reproductions. Listeners, it is my dream to go and snorkel there one day. I want to go and swim amongst the reproductions in the original floors. Like, Baiae is actually quite a shallow bay, and this isn't that deeply sunk, so you could do that, and it's just my dream. And I wanted to end this episode with a bit of a warning. The site and all the sites in this area are in threat, not just from humans and marine life and the sea, but from the volcano. Of course, from the volcano that is below the surface.
This is from an article on BBC Travel, once again, by Amanda Ruggeri, called Baiae, a Roman settlement at the bottom of the sea. Quote, over its full 13-kilometer radius, the supervolcano, almost all of it at ground level or beneath the sea, has 24 craters and more than 150 pools of boiling mud. It's easy to see how the ancient Greeks, who settled here first, came up with the name Phlegrean Fields, which is from the early Greek verb phlego, which means to burn. So I think that's the burning fields. The danger of Campi Phlegae isn't just its size and strength, but its randomness. When a volcano like Vesuvius erupts, you know where the eruption will come from, the cone at its peak, not here. The activity isn't ever in the same place. Every eruption has its own story and place of emission, Moura said. Therefore, we obviously don't know when the eruption will happen, but we also don't know where the next eruption will happen if there is one. Another danger is the type of activity. More than 90% of the activity Campi Phlegae is explosive, not effusive. In other words, when it blows, it won't leak lava over the ground. It will punch a column of rock and lava into the air. When the detritus lands, the ash will blacken the sky and thicken the air, making both seeing and breathing near impossible. The column's collapse causes a pyroclastic flow, extreme heat of up to 700 degrees Celsius that vaporizes everything in its path. That, at least, is what happened 39,000 years ago, the date of Campi Phlegae's largest eruption. Molten rock spewed 70 kilometers high. Ashes were found as far away as Siberia. The explosion was so powerful, the volcano collapsed into a caldera. The cooling that occurred in the ensuing years may even have helped bring about the end of the Neanderthals. 15,000 years ago, Campi Phlegae erupted again. The eruption wasn't as large, but it threw significant volumes of yellow tufa into the air, enough to give Naples its color today. People carved through and built with the local stone, giving the palazzi, churches, and even underground tunnels their golden color.
This volcano will go off again. It's not a matter of if, but a matter of when. It will have an eruption that will reshape our world. And when it does, it will take Baiae with it. But for now, the sunken Roman city sits in the shallow waters off the Bay of Naples, breathing in and out, rising and gently falling with the volcano as it stretches and yawns. So that's it for this week. You can catch us on all the socials. We're at Ancient History Fangirl on Threads, Instagram, and Facebook, and TikTok. We're still on Twitter. We're not calling it that other name. We're at Ancient Hist Fan. Please do come and say hello to us. We could do with a little bit of cheering up. In particular, Jen could. After the broken ankle and the bronchitis.
Jen has had a time. Come and cheer up Jen. You know what really cheers Jen up? Number one, positive reviews on our iTunes. And number two, joining our Patreon.
Yes.
Joining our Patreon is the way we're able to keep the podcast going. Podcasting is a tricky business, and we want to keep going as long as humanly possible. We love bringing you these stories, but advertising doesn't pay as much as it could or should do. So we do rely on the largesse of our patrons to keep this running.
Patreon can be found at patreon.com/ancienthistoryfangirl.
We have some patrons to thank this week.
Apologies if we mispronounce your name. Hopefully we don't.
Thank you to Eric Tufte,
Lisa Barch,
Diana Rizel,
Anger Boda,
Katie Johnson,
Bridget Hunsucker,
and Mary Kowalski.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your support, and we will see you next week when we talk about whatever the hell we're talking about next in this cursed, haunted podcast. I cannot say what it will be.
It will be a metal Christmas.
Bye.